All right, so we're going to be jumping into Jedi Battle Scars. This is the novel that takes place 5 years, I believe, after.
It's I don't know if it's 5 years after.
Oh, no,
it takes
the
place
game is 5
in
years.
the 5-year gap between
in
the
the gap.
two games.
They, at the very least, the Mantis crew has been together for a couple of years, I would say.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. After the point of them being like, all right, what
Yeah.
now? To like, all right, here's where we are.
Yeah. So if you haven't read the book, like the basic premise of the book is that the Mantis crew is given a mission to find a piece of technology called the Shroud.
The Shroud.
Which is a thing that can effectively make you disappear off of sensors, off of Imperial networks. Like it's invisibility cloak.
But it sounds like it's a personal kind of one.
It is.
It's not like cloaking the ship in Clone Wars.
No,
or
it's
any
for
of that
you
kind of
yourself.
stuff. It's a personal thing.
Like you don't appear on holograms, stuff like that, right? It's something that's being developed, and if the Empire gets its hands on it, it's going to be bad.
Sure.
So if the Rebels can get it, that's going to be good. It's pretty basic. It's the premise of Rebel Assault 2. Have you ever played that on the PC?
I never played that one, no.
With the there was a certain type of TIE fighter that can like cloak itself and kind of had that. But how did you feel about the book?
I think I like some stuff they do with some characters.
Yeah.
I think the overall feeling of the book for me was that it's not one of my favorites of what we've read so far.
Yeah.
I think part of it could be doing that it's a shorter book. It's not quite as long as some of the other ones. And maybe some things could have been done with a little bit more time overall. But there's definitely elements of the book that I like and that I enjoy.
Yep.
I do like getting a lot more time with Marin in this book because we don't get any time with her in the game.
Yeah.
So I do enjoy kind of getting into her head a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
But with you asking me that, I'm assuming yours is on the lower end.
I actively hated the first half and was entertained in the second half. But I didn't necessarily enjoy it.
Even the in the very beginning when we go into the Brood hideout and stuff, you didn't enjoy.
It was okay.
Gotcha.
But like, I kind of kept waiting for things to start. Like, okay, we're going to start developing these things, and we kind of would just like spin our wheels and do the same thing over and over and over again. And then there's just like there'd be like 40-minute sequences where it's just our characters fighting with each other, which is just, I don't want to poo-poo any, corner of the galaxy too much, but I personally think that the relationship of Star Wars and sex is a weird one. Like, there's no sex scenes in Star Wars, right? Like, Rian Johnson has that famous quote where, like, the scene with Rey and Kylo touching hands in the Jedi, like, that's the closest you're ever get to a sex scene in Star Wars, right? And I'm a sex positive person. I'm an inclusive person. But I feel like they had, like, this gave me the feeling of, like, when I first heard what Star Wars fan fiction was, I'm like, oh, that sounds cool. A whole bunch more stories I can go enjoy. And I'm like, what's slash fiction? And I'm like, oh, that's two characters doing it. And I really felt like there was way too much sex in this.
Way too much sex?
Yeah.
I mean, you mean like leading up to it, and it's like, okay, well, that must be what they're doing over there. But
like to the point where characters just like throw reason and rationality and shit out the window, and like ignore really good points that like Grease is making, and being like, well, my feelings though, or like, but love though, but like, do you love this person? You've known him for like a week,
Sure, but
I don't know. Like, there's something about it, like, like Star Wars is about love, but it's not. It needs to be, an all ages thing, right? I don't know.
Well,
there was just some scenes where, I remember, like, when I was on the plane coming back from London, and I'm listening to this, it was an audiobook. It's Marin and what's the Fret. They, for some reason, the audiobook guy gave him the same exact accent, so I was already annoyed by that. I couldn't tell who was speaking because they sound exactly the same.
I understand that.
And then also, like, it would just go on for like. I felt like there was just like a whole half hour while I was sitting there like, can we do something? Like, I can't listen about this lady's hands anymore,
Her hands?
I don't care if Marin's biting shoulders and collarbones and stuff, Like, granted, like when it comes to other stories, like I think that sex can be a very, very interesting, provocative part of fiction.
Sure.
But I don't think it really has a place in Star Wars. I mean, yes, of course the characters have sex. So of course they that stuff happens, but that's generally not the visual and fictional language of Star Wars, and I felt like it really drug down the entire first half for me.
See, it's weird. I want to talk about, because you said about like it should be for all ages. You also said about like sex, and I remember like in Andor at a point, be like, well, they just had sex.
Sure.
And I don't remember that being a problem, that sex was like a thing.
Well, it's because they just had sex. You're not reading it like almost actively happening. You don't have like these two characters go into Cal's room and have sex for 12 hours and as he's sitting there waiting, I was like, I wonder what's going on in there, especially for a guy that has psychometry. He's going to go down there, touch his cot, and be like, what happened?
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the fact that they were in there for a long time, you're I don't like that.
I'm not
like I assume what's going on in there this whole time is sex.
It was just like I need the characters to, I need Marin. Like, I was really excited going into this, being like, I'm going to learn so much more about Marin and stuff, and I think I learned a little bit.
Yeah.
But I feel like a lot of time was wasted with having characters repeat themselves a lot, and then just Marin just having, like, no character other than she's really horny right now, Now, I know there's the whole, like, she's rediscovering her fire and all that type of thing, but, like, it's just like, okay, Fret is very, very attractive. Marin finds her very, very attractive.
Sure.
And we're going to be talking, like, this poor audiobook guy had to do both of their voices in the same exact accent. And it's like, I just remember at one point being like, I never had the feeling of, I'm going to skip ahead. But there was times where I'm like, I'm bored. Like, can we skip ahead or something? Yeah.
Okay.
And that was just the first half. I feel like it got better towards the second half.
Well, sure, because it's like, I don't know, they ended up going forced more on mission stuff.
Yeah.
They had to like actually,
and it has
there's
nothing,
also someone else jumps in, and there's a love triangle now, so there's an issue.
And
there,
it has nothing to do with like the fact that it's two women or anything. I would feel the same way if like Han and Leia on the Falcon while they're in the asteroid are like, grabbing each other and biting each other's collarbones for 5 minutes,
Man, I just didn't feel that way.
Really? Yeah.
No, I didn't feel. I didn't feel like, oh god, this sex shit. Oh no.
I mean, I wasn't like,
I feel like
I wasn't like clutching pearls.
I also don't think that like, oh man, Marin's just really horny. Like I feel like there's a element there where Marin is like, she's lonely. She's lost all of her people. She has nobody. There's lots of those elements, and I feel like it's diving into a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
You could say that it happened really fast. Yes. I could maybe agree with that one.
Immediately.
There's like a thing where it's like, it's a stormtrooper. Oh, she's not shooting me. She's pretty. I don't know. There's elements of that where I can be like, well, this came really, really fast.
Sure.
But also like,
I judge Indy.
There's people who have fallen in love like that, and they're like, I'm in love immediately, and this is how I feel about it. So I can't say like, well, this is wrong that she felt this way. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like there was like, man, there's just a lot of sex going on. I was like, okay, well, they're in there. I'm going to assume what they're doing, but we cut somewhere else.
Sure.
But I didn't feel like it's like she's writing like, and then she takes off. I don't know. I didn't feel like it was like 50 Shades, really? Or something like that.
I felt like it was more than I've ever seen or read in Star Wars. And again, I'm not sitting here like clutching my pearls and saying I'm a prude or anything.
Sure.
I just felt like it was very distracting. And I think, one, you can do everything that happens with Marin's character. You can do it the same exact way and then maybe just be a little more economic in your writing.
Sure.
Because I think that was one of my probably more than it being very sex-focused was just like, I just feel like we just kept doing the same shit over and over again. Finally, something would start happening,
I think my issue is that. I don't feel like we traversed as much. That's why I was like, I think it could have been longer maybe, or maybe she didn't have enough time when they were writing it. But there was more story stuff I feel like we could have done, or maybe more things we could have gone into instead or as well, just to make it feel like we were going and kind of doing more stuff.
I suppose it could just be anticipation. I was like, ooh, battle scars. Ooh, the fifth brother, like on the cover and stuff, and be like, ooh, okay. And imagining like, what could this be? This could be really cool. And then like it took us so long for the actual, I feel like, story to actually get going. And then it just spent so much time on something that I'm like, I don't know if this matches Star Wars' visual language at all, or the fictional language at all.
Gotcha, yeah.
So,
no, I think honestly, like, I would have liked a villain that maybe wasn't the fifth brother.
Yeah.
I think I had more issue with that, being that there's fight stuff that's going on and things that are happening, and he's a villain that we have to fight. Yeah. But I'm also like, well, this isn't a villain that we can like defeat, which is often one of my things where I compare like Rebels to Clone Wars, and it's like, Rebels, I feel like I could lose someone any time. Yeah. But I'm like, well, I know this book takes place in between here and here.
Sure.
I'm not worried for Seer or Cal, You know, I'm certain these people are going to be making it into the game.
Yeah.
Because it would be weird to kill them in the book when you would probably want to kill them in the game instead. You know. So like part of my worry is that like, well, let me just grab this character here because it's a big character people know already. Maybe they were just an Obi-Wan. You know.
Yeah.
And then also the idea that I think maybe.
He's also better he's ever been in anything I've ever seen him in.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, man, he's taking on both of them?
Yeah.
That's weird.
He like froze them in place.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, man, he never did that before.
Yeah.
Which is scary and cool, but
Sure.
I felt like he wasn't that strong in Rebels.
No,
and
I
this should
agree.
take
And
place before
I,
that, right?
I do think
So-
that power scaling, while it's really fun to talk about, isn't necessarily something that like a writer needs to worry about too much. It needs to be about like, well, what does a certain character bring to the table that makes it interesting, not just like they're super strong, yo. But yeah, the fifth brother didn't really bring anything because he doesn't have much of a character.
No.
Yeah.
I think I can't even remember. I think they mentioned his planet at one point.
Yeah.
And I don't remember what it was called. I think it started with an A,
Something like that.
but I don't remember what it was.
It's a gigantic step down from Trilla.
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's not like
Yeah.
his story is a big part. It's like he shows up
Yeah.
at the prison when we need someone to fight and there's a problem.
Yeah.
He shows up at the end when we need to fight someone else
Yeah.
and there's a problem, you know?
And I think the author could have maybe done a better job too. Like it doesn't do much to create dread in your characters when you're like, yeah, and there he is, and he also had a big stupid hat. You know, it's like you're not really making dread for me when you're actively just making fun of the character. You know, so I feel like that was a mistake as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought of it as more of like a Cal personality thing.
Well,
and not so much of just straight up.
there
author
was
thing.
one line that was done from no character's point of view that did it.
Oh, really?
That
I remembered it from Cal.
no, the Cal one makes a lot of
and
sense.
I think Grease.
Of course,
I
yeah.
think both had like a
Yeah.
moment like that. I was like,
But no,
but then you hit it, and it's like it resists sabers.
Sure.
You know, and it's like, oh, no wonder he wears this helmet. And,
Yeah.
and now it's more of like it's not just goofy. There's a reason for it, and it's more intimidating because of that. You know.
Yeah.
But like if someone's just like, hey, he's got a weird glove on, but then he grabs your lightsaber and punches you in the face, like, oh, geez,
Yeah.
shouldn't have made fun of his glove. You know.
Sure, right? No, I get that. He just, he didn't really get to bring much to the table.
No.
I think that's kind of like my issue with the entire book was I think I just expected more.
I think, and here's what my thoughts were with it, because I don't, like you said, I felt like we kind of spun wheels a little bit. Like I felt like some of the getting in heads was really good. I
Yeah.
enjoyed some stuff with Seer.
I think, was
enjoyed
my
some
favorite
stuff
part.
with Cal.
Yeah. And Grease, of course.
And Grease, yeah, and there's
Grease,
some big moments with a lot
number
of them.
one.
I also enjoy some of the stuff with Marin too. I think that there is some retreading and like a lot of I don't know. It's weird for me to measure it in book time because it's like anime in a way where it's like here's how long are they standing in this prison while everyone's fighting while there's
Exactly.
like an argument or discussion
Yeah.
or whatever was going on.
I
you know?
think
But I think what
agree.
happened is I think the author probably was given like here's some plot lines that we're going for in this book or in this game. Make sure you get to these points for the start of the game. Here you go. And it's like, all right, well, I don't get the full freedom to write everything I want, and I have to make sure I have to end at these, you
Yeah.
know. But I don't know. I don't know if a lot of these characters will all be in the game, if they'll have any connection. Fret and
Emery. Irie sounds better.
Okay.
The Nikto, right?
Yeah, the Nikto. They both leave by the end of the book, and while they maybe aren't going to be in the game, there was a nod towards like changing of the hollow table that they have.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, maybe they're like that's who fixed the table to do whatever new things maybe it can do in the game. You know, I felt like there was some stuff like that was kind of being brought into it a little
Yeah.
bit.
I think that my main issue with this book is the issue I have with a lot of things that are kind of sold as like, look at the rest of the story you didn't see, like in between two chapters, in that you can't do anything so significant that a person that's only playing Fallen Order and then only playing Survivor feels like, well, what happened? So you have to read the book. That's not good marketing strategy, you know?
Sure.
So
yeah.
that's why I feel like, oh, okay, that's why the characters don't really change much other than Grease.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. I think it's like, okay, well, you got to have like here's Grease, here's
Yeah.
Seer, Marin's got to be here, whoever it is. We got to have all these. It's like, okay, so I can't kill off any characters.
Yeah.
I can't do anything too crazy, and I can't do anything. So you can't do something that's too crazy where it's gonna be like this is a more important story than the game. So I feel like it does kind of put you in a little bubble where it's like, okay, what can I write about?
Yeah.
And maybe that's why they don't go just too many places.
Maybe.
Though we go to Hosnian Prime, which I thought was interesting.
Sure.
I don't feel like there's as much Hosnian Prime.
I don't think I learned anything about
back.
Hosnian Prime, but I get you.
The one thing I thought was interesting was not Cassius. What's his name? Not Kestis. The bird dude.
The big bad bird dude.
Yeah, right?
I can't remember his name right now.
Claire. Someone's going to say it.
Someone's going to say it.
I know it's going to be. It's going to be like in here in a few minutes. But anyway, he's the guy who says, okay, there's the shroud. I need you guys to go get the shroud.
Yeah.
It should be over here in this vicinity. The one thing I really liked that he had said was talking about how he was from Alderaan.
Yeah.
And how the senator there has he's not willing to fight. He's not willing to do anything. He's just there as a lapdog for the Empire.
Yeah.
Right? And I was like, when I was listening, I'm like, man, is Bale really doing such a good job?
He's that good.
That these people, like this guy here, like I don't think he liked the Empire either, right? He was with the Brood eventually. But I left there because he is so unwilling to do anything against the Empire. It's ridiculous. And it's like, no, he's building a rebellion. You know, he's working with people and trying to help whoever he can. And I was like, I think that was one of my favorite lines in the book, at least, being like, that's just how good Bale is.
It is.
Is that this guy has no idea, and he's doing as much as he can.
Yeah.
And I thought that was cool.
It's stuff like that makes me, like, why I love the Mon Mothma stuff in Andor, and why I like Luthen, right?
Yeah.
And all that stuff, where it's like they have to play both sides, and to be able to push, the scale this way, they have to equally make themselves look like they're trying to push on this one too, So that's really cool. I really like that, and that was a good line about that. Yeah.
I should look at my notes. Karras.
Karras, that's his name.
That's his name. I wrote Karras from Alderaan.
Yeah.
I didn't get that he was a bird person right away. And I went back, I'm like, oh, he's a bird person. Okay.
Sure.
It was someone called him Big Bird. I'm like, wait, why do they call him Big Bird?
Big Bird.
And then I was like, oh, okay.
He's a bird.
Yeah, he's a bird. And there's like some bird people in SWTOR and stuff too. There's like a planet that has like some bird people in it.
Is there?
Yeah.
I was trying to rack my brain, like, how many bird people do I know?
When we were talking about it on Fallen Order during stream, someone had mentioned about the planet Rishi, I believe, and I think that's the planet that had the bird people in it.
Okay.
I don't know if it's the same bird species that this guy was.
Sure.
So it easily could be a different species.
Okay.
But
yeah.
So things that I really liked about the book, though.
Yes.
I enjoyed in the very beginning. I like that there's this crazy adventure. They're trying to get to the Brood. And he's like jumping from rock to rock, and it's like stealth.
Yeah.
So like BD's like just tapping on him.
Yeah.
Like I like the chemistry between BD and Cal. I feel like it's still kind of the same from the game.
And it's fantastic to actually
in there really well.
It's fantastic to get into Cal's head as a narrator for himself, not just me, the player, making Cal do things.
Yeah.
Right. Other than cutscenes.
Yeah. Now it does feel a lot like the game because like there's a lot of like there's some battle moments and stuff, and there's fighting happening. There's a lot of killing. I love like. Not the visuals, but like the story that they tell with Marin, like using her flames, engulfing them, like them burning from the inside and stuff like that kind of stuff.
No, I love that
that'd
too.
Be terrifying.
There was a small part of me, like because when you play a game and you take out a bunch of enemies, like, well, we're playing. That's the game. Like that's the whole point. But like in the novel, when then suddenly Cal is transported into like a real situation, and I mean that like I'm in a whole different medium. I'm like, man. Motherfucker kills a lot of people.
Yeah,
like
sure.
I know that like Yoda says like the Force is to be used for knowledge and defense, never attack. But I think Cal skipped that day.
Sure,
because he even says later he's like, "Hey, I am a weapon. I'm nothing else. I can't inspire. I can't lead. I can't help people. You point me in a thing and I kill everybody." I'm like, Jesus, Cal.
But that leads. I think that leads with where we're at and what we're talking about with Fallen Order.
Yes.
Is like. What is the Jedi now? Where have they gone? What could they become? And it's like there's a very fine line, and there's an empire that's also evil and doing terrible things too that we're trying to fight against. So like, as a Jedi, what should a Jedi do? Luke Skywalker has killed a lot of people too.
Probably millions.
Yes,
because of the Death Star.
He blew up the Death Star. But like, oh, he's a good guy. So like, for me to look at Cal and be like, well, he's not a good guy because he killed less people than Luke Skywalker with. No.
I'm not saying it's a bad thing or anything.
Cal has killed less people than R2 has killed.
Yeah, no, I agree. No, there was something in like the prose of the writing where it was like I had to like kind of pause for a second. I'm like, how does Cal like? What does he think about like taking so much life like that? I mean, we could say the same thing about Luke and anybody.
Yeah,
really.
Anyone really,
yeah,
right?
I agree, but he kind of like compares himself to Marin, who is using her anger and the Dathomir and fire, the magics, right? And how it's like it's fundamentally dark.
Yeah.
And fundamentally, I'm opposed to that. But I'm kind of sitting there like, now that I'm actually having someone write, like, Cal kills a bunch of people in this room, being like, what's the difference, man? Like, you're still, dealing out death.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's like a bad thing or a flaw in the writing or anything. I think it's the contradiction of Jedi heroes that have to make that choice.
Sure.
Right?
Especially in this time, in this dark time.
Yeah.
Like, they don't get the choice necessarily
Yeah.
to be like, I'm not going to kill anybody. Because sometimes it's like, there's Inquisitors coming after me.
There are.
There's Stormtroopers coming after me. Darth Vader's coming after me. Whoever it is, I have to defend myself and possibly kill them, or else I'll be dead,
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It's a tricky thing. But for me, it felt like I was reading the game in a way, where it's like, this is what I did in the game, so
Yeah.
this is what Cal would be doing.
Like,
I killed so
especially-
many people.
Yeah. Like, especially, like, Cal being like, stem.
Yeah, yeah, that happened.
And he
Yeah,
would
that
do a
was cool.
stem, and he could, like, I could feel it coursing through my veins, and I'm going like, does anybody else have this?
The stem thing.
Yeah, like
I
I
don't
never
know.
like you never reading Brotherhood, and Anakin like, oh fuck, a stem. My power level went up a little bit.
Sure. Yeah.
So like there was, for me, it wasn't jarring or inappropriate or incorrect or anything, but there was a slight disconnect where I'm going like, oh, that's a game thing, kind of,
Sure.
for me.
Yeah, and the stims, like, they call them stims, so it makes me think of stimulant. So it's not like, maybe it's not like it heals, but
Yeah.
it, like, just adrenaline boosts you a
Sure.
little bit to keep as if you healed, and then later on you still got to
Yeah.
recover. But I don't know.
And I should say too, like, to give the book as much, or like to explain myself as much as I can. I didn't read any of it until I started coming back from Celebration.
Gotcha.
I didn't read or start before, so it was all after I had just been to the biggest Star Wars event in the world with some of the craziest announcements, like the most hype I've ever been. And then just because I didn't jive with the book very much, that's not necessarily the book's fault. I kind of like came in with a very high standard,
Yeah, sure.
So maybe there's a little bit of that with some of the other criticism that I have for it. But I mean, it's like when I finished it, I had a great time. I loved the way that Jaro still is with Cal a little bit, and
Yeah.
like when Cal doesn't know what to do, he thinks back on that failed lesson of Jaro's, which is just do the next step, and we can do this piece by piece.
Yeah, piece by piece.
Yeah,
I remember that. I like that part
or
there.
step by step, or whatever it is.
Yeah. No, it was like, I have to catalog all the pieces of my lightsaber.
Yeah.
It's like, but I haven't done anything. I have to do
Yeah.
it tomorrow. It's like, what should I do? It's like, start piece
Yeah.
by piece.
Yeah.
Like, all right.
I loved Grease in this book.
Grease.
Yeah. I
Was it
do-
because he was the voice of reason to all the things that you're like, yes, listen to this man?
Well, yeah. I do feel like every time he would bring up a point, usually like in arguments, a character will bring up a point and then they'll try to either sidestep the point because they don't have a good response, or they'll address the point, and that's how all conversations happen, right?
Sure.
And I feel like every time Grease came up, like would say something, or like a character would talk to Fret and be like, why didn't you tell us? That was my biggest thing in the whole book, where like it seemed like it was an acceptable thing that Fret didn't tell them everything that she knew before they went on that mission. Grease obviously didn't think that, but Marin, Cal, like they kind of like came to like a thing. It's like, okay, well, yeah, I get why you did it then.
Marin
Or it
was-
almost felt like the reader was supposed to feel that way.
Marin knew, right?
Sure.
Like Marin was
Yeah,
told
I-
just
I was-
before.
I was
and
mad
then
at Marin,
she
too.
wasn't. She didn't tell either. But
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things too, where it's like it wasn't that she was trying to do it against the Mantis,
Uh-huh.
but she was like, if I tell them, will they suspect me and not trust me more? Right?
I
So
can't
it's-
imagine.
It's one of those things like, should I tell them or should I not, and how would it affect them if I do?
I guess my problem with it, and it's not a problem, this is how life works, is that I wasn't satisfied with the conversation when it ended. I wasn't like, I don't think we addressed the points that they made. And all you came back with was, I was scared. But I was scared is a valid point.
Sure.
Like, you can be scared and make dumb decisions. I just didn't like that those dumb decisions came at the expense of, like, well, Marin's really, 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 really into her. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what my best argument against that is. But
Yeah.
like, I get what you mean. I think that there's that trickiness of like, I'm already on the back end of this group
Yeah.
because I'm a stormtrooper.
Sure.
Which, I mean, she lied about being a stormtrooper.
She lied about leaving the Empire. She
Yeah.
lied
Well-
by omission
well-
about the codes not
Yeah.
changing and stuff.
Well, that's the one that
about the shop
that
being a
happens
person.
with going into it, right?
Yeah.
Is that they're going to this prison to
Yeah.
get this secret
Mhm.
shroud device schematics, actually.
Yeah.
And she's like, I haven't told them that I haven't left the Empire because I still need my clearance codes to be able to do things and stuff, right? So in a way, it helps them, but...
Well, not in the fact that, like, they had, as they found Irie, right? And they had to spend 12 minutes talking about everything that Fret didn't say, and then they acted. Sure. Whereas if they had gone in there with all the information that Fret had, which I heard the explanation. I don't know if I was like, why would that change how they felt if you told them, like, hey, actually, I'm still there and I have the codes. This is why. You know, I don't know if that would really, I was trying to, for me, and it might be, I might just be wrong, but I was like, I don't know if that would change if I would trust her more or less. If anything, all it did was just create this huge amount of time they had to try to, they once again had a huge fight in the middle of the mission.
It's also one of those things
which was frustrating,
where they I think it's like some TV shows that we've watched, right? Where it's like, this is not the time to argue this point.
Yeah.
Like, sure, it happened. It's too late now. Let's move on to the next thing.
Sure.
But I do like that they made a prison break as a big distraction so they could escape.
Me too.
It sounds like a cool game moment to me.
It did. Yeah,
where
absolutely.
It's like, all right, guys, how we get out of here?
Yeah.
Jailbreak.
Yeah.
Everyone's getting out. Everyone's running and everything.
And I actually, you know, I think that I was just not connecting with the character of Fret in the beginning just because I was like, what are we doing? You know, but halfway through, as we learned more, as we were introduced to Imre, as Fret became more of a character outside of just being the stormtrooper that's turning, I end up warming to her a lot more. And there was many times that like she legitimately made me laugh and stuff. But I think the two main things was just like a very, very, very big focus on the characters being attracted to each other and doing stuff to each other like on camera. And then the other one, I just lost it. But I had another thing, but it didn't gel with me. I can't think of it right now.
Them fighting?
The infighting was yeah. I think fights and disagreements can be done really well, especially after Grease, and if you haven't seen the book, this is a spoiler, Grease loses his arm to the fifth brother, or to Seer's lightsaber used by the fifth brother. That scene after that, when Grease is just sad and angry and rageful, that was amazing. All the other arguments in the whole thing just, like, you know, kept circling around a point and then never got there.
No, I mean, Grease's story I thought was good, and I enjoyed that. I felt really bad, and I'm like, oh no, how's this going to be for flying and everything? And then luckily we had like, I don't think it was Fret. Maybe it was Fret. One of the two could also fly and was able to get us off the planet and everything, so we could go and heal. But I did like getting into Marin's mind where she was like, I just use this to help heal. Yeah. I think it was Irie. Whichever, I forget the pronunciation. The Nikto. But she used it to heal her, and then she was like exhausted. And then when Grease come in, she's like, oh no, I didn't know how bad he would be. Yeah. Like, what do I do? And she didn't go out to go help Cal. Grease went, who was the pilot, who I should have stayed back, you know. But he's like, I'm gonna go, and like I like what Grease did. He's willing to throw himself. He is willing to help sacrifice himself or whatever. Yeah. Even in moments when it's like, well, that's probably not the job he should have, but he will do that, and I thought it was really good. And I love towards the end too, where it's like even the 3-armed Grease. He was like, I'm up there and I was flying around shooting down ships, and you know, like, like I was doing all kinds of stuff, you know. It's like, you should have seen him. It was great, you know. Yeah,
like you want to say to Grease, like, dude, like, yes, you've lost an arm, but you still got one more than everyone else.
Sure, yeah.
You know, like it's still good, man. You're still whole.
There was the part where I don't know if it was from a seer perspective or whatnot, but like Grease is working on trying to pilot his ship that he has set up for his 4 arms, and Seer's trying to like help him in any way she can to like pick up the slack of his arm not being there anymore. And like it was like a sweet kind of moment of like them gonna, like, it's a lot of the things are like, here's Marin and Cal, and then here's Grease and Seer, and like there's certain pairings we have. Sometimes it's not, and it's like, here's Cal and BD. Yeah. And that's why Marin kind of feels left out, I think, a bit too. Sure. Which is why she's like, when there's someone else and there's one new person on the ship, because it was an odd number already anyway, in a way. I mean, you can say like people have already looked at Cal and Marin as like a ship, and they're like, can we have something there? Will we not have something there?
Yeah, and that certainly is built in this book too.
Sure. But there's lots of times where it's like, Marin's talking about like, well, Cal has BD, and Seer and Grease like have each other talk to. I don't have anyone. So I think like Fret coming in and being someone that's willing to listen and willing to be vulnerable to her and stuff too, because how else do you gain trust but to make sure that if I show my vulnerability, it's more likely for someone to trust me. You
Sure.
know, that's kind of how it happens. That's kind of what they start doing, but she also lies within some of it too.
Yeah.
So it just leaves a lot of complications.
I guess I also, going into the book and not knowing where things were going, I was immediately distrustful of Fret.
Man,
being like,
the first time,
do we why do we trust her?
When we
She's a fascist. She's a Nazi.
We took her on the ship, and I was like, oh man, what if in Survivor we have a stormtrooper that's on our side on the ship? That'd be so cool. That's what went through my mind first.
Yeah.
I wasn't like, why is she coming?
Yeah.
But I just didn't know where we were gonna go with anything, you know.
So I guess that's why it's not disappointment, but I was kind of like, Aaron, what are you doing? Like, you have no idea who this person is, what they really think. Like, she could just be seducing you because you're so damn horny.
I guess I don't know.
So I kept kind of waiting for the axe to fall, and it did, just in ways where I'm like, oh, that's what she was lying about.
Yeah.
Why? Oh, okay, gotcha. All right.
She just didn't think that people would.
If Fret
Trust her
appears
and
in the
stuff,
game, in the next game, I'll be like, hey, Fret, But if she doesn't, I won't be like, what? Where's Fret?
I don't think that they're going to show up. I think maybe they could be voices or backstory that maybe pops up in
Yeah, sure.
I mean, we had that one time when Cal grabs the Stormtrooper armor and gets a vision and stuff. I thought it was cool being kind of in his mind of what it feels like and what he's going through, seeing it and how it's to him it feels real.
Yeah.
I am this person, you know?
Yeah, no, that was really cool.
When thinking about that,
I don't feel like I get that in the game.
Yeah, if you go and think about what he felt with Trilla, it looks like he's going through some stuff.
Yeah.
But now context that with he feels that he is her.
Yeah.
And he's really feeling her emotions, her thoughts, her memories, all those kind of things. I thought that was really kind of a neat insight from that. And I think into the game you don't quite get that because he kind of just oh, family used to be here.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, even the one with Trilla where you're seeing everything from Trilla's point of view and as a Padawan, I feel like the little Rhodian Padawan kid, when you look down and he's crying and he's like, you think I'll be okay? And I and Cal know you will not. You will not be okay. Mm-hmm. And it's but you don't really necessarily, at least I don't feel like I'm feeling Trilla's feelings as I am more of an observer.
In that moment there, is Trilla feeling fear,
She's gotta be.
Is that what's going through? And in that case, Cal should be feeling how afraid she was in that moment. The torture scene when he is her and she's being tortured, the pain, the fear, all those kind of things.
I think it's a cool idea to have it be a point of view because Cal was literally inhabiting that person. Mm-hmm. But not being able to see the actor's or the character's face kind of takes away the emotional resonance a little bit for me. I'm just oh,
in the game?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
If I could actually see Trilla in that torture scene, I don't want to see it, but I would feel, I think, especially the first time I experienced it. Now that I know what's happening, when I do a different playthrough or watching you, I can feel a little bit more. But at least the first time, I don't think I really realized just how much they did to her to break her,
Sure.
And it was because I couldn't see her face. I need to see people's faces to read them.
Really?
That's just the base instinct visual storytelling,
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I guess in that I'm like, Jesus sucks. But I also get what you mean. I feel like it's more an observer. I think even seeing it from a third person perspective, not thinking about how it affects Cal, you're still not necessarily thinking about he is feeling all these emotions from them. Yeah. Even if you're like, geez, that sucks. Oh man, look at that force push or whatever, Mm-hmm. But
yeah. But I mean, it was probably my least favorite book that we've done on Badonkagunk. It's certainly not my least favorite Star Wars book. There's some legend stuff that's not good.
Yeah.
Definitely not good.
No. I mean, there's definitely been other books that I've enjoyed more than this one.
Yeah.
But there's definitely elements of this that I still enjoyed and stuff. I don't think I disliked as much as you seem to. But there's definitely I'm like, I wish it would.
At no point,
I wish I wouldn't spin my wheels here, and I wish we would expand maybe here. Was kind of how I felt.
At no point in this book was I like, what? Why didn't they put this in a game?
Yeah.
Which I feel like should be your standard.
I suppose.
When you're like, hey, we're going to be making a middle chapter between these two games. Okay, what's the standards? Make it feel like you're...
So if that was a DLC for the game that you could play, you're like, I don't need it.
I'd be like, well, the 12-minute sex scene was a bit much.
I don't think it's a 12-minute sex scene. I don't know where you get it, but
it felt like it.
I don't know where it's from. There was one thing in the very beginning. I still didn't mention it yet, but One of my favorite things in the book, too, towards the beginning, was that he's going to this Haxian Brood location, and they're there, and they're, like, sneaking around, which, for me, like, game-wise, I'm like, this would work really well for a game. I like him sneaking through and seeing all the people in this cantina place, and there's stormtroopers there. And I love that they're, like, there's a stormtrooper drinking in his little induction hole. And I just picture
induction hole.
I just picture him, like, with a little hole here, just, like, through the thing. I was like,
no,
that's really cool. I like that they have that in there.
I do like the story structure in that the entire first mission would be made so much easier if we had the Shroud, right?
Sure.
Like, Cal has to, like, secretly infiltrate, and the only way to do it is be small enough to not get picked up on the scanners, which means he has to pretty much just compel himself through it, right?
Yeah.
But if they had the Shroud, then they probably want to do all that type of thing.
When they were talking about that, did you ever think of Warwick Davis from Rebels? Rook.
Yeah.
Because he had, like, I don't know if it was every episode, but he had, like, kind of a moment when he stealthed and, like, Sabine like painted him so they could see him. Yeah. And I'm like, is this like
I didn't think about that.
Is there like a precursor and, like, we do get that and that's what he had?
Sure.
Or because, like, that's how I imagined when they were describing it, like Predator, you know, like you're going to be invisible and people just won't see you. Or is it meant to be, because you mentioned more of, like, kind of in a tech way. You won't be seen on scanners and cameras. And is it more like Keenan from Mystery Men, where when you don't look at him, cameras can't see him?
Yeah. I'm invisible, but only when no one's looking at me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and maybe, like, as my final thing, too, because I maybe I was just confused, but did the Shroud actually exist, or was it just a theoretical design in Imri's mind?
There were schematics that she had that she wouldn't let out, and I don't think she ever tried to build it.
Like, she
was
said,
afraid
like,
that you could get to that.
Yeah.
But there's also elements where it kind of felt like the technology might not
like
quite
it's
be
not
there.
Yeah.
You needed some kind of special mineral from a place that
very volatile. Yeah.
Karis could get, I think it was. So that's why, like, they never had it. They made a fake one to kind of trick them into having, like, here, this is it, you know?
Yeah.
But careful with that. I don't know why we got that. Just
be very careful with that. It's volatile as well.
So it didn't exist, at least yet, and I don't think she's ever actually tried to build it. But I mean, it could still be a general idea as to what maybe leads, and maybe that is like in Rebels, because that's later on in Rebels.
Yeah,
maybe that is made, and that's something that could be used. But I don't know why he could do that. But
but like we got to the end, and whenever Emery's like, technology's probably not even there anyway. I was like, well, damn, we went through a lot for something that actually has no possibility of being made.
Sure, but it was all just information they had that they were believing, and it wasn't true. There was never a time, though, in the book that I didn't agree with Cal more, where, like, he was so angry that Karis had a jetpack, and I'm like, those dang bounty hunters, man, they're always on jetpacks flying around, like, get back down here, you know? And I was like,
he even references one of, like, the Hazian Brood droids, where it's like, oh yeah, you know, what if H4D7 attacked me right now? He just kind of made up some things.
I think it's like TL1.
Yeah. But it gave me the feeling of when you're playing Fallen Order and one of those droid guys show up, and I'm like, well, who the hell is 4D76?
Yeah.
It's the same thing.
Well, and I wrote down, too, like, there was a bounty hunter, and his name was, like, Blorp or something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's just a weird name. Blorp, all right.
Blorp.
But
also, have you ever looked at a Nikto and called them a lizard?
I don't think so.
Like
they've described him a lot as a lizard, right?
Yeah, like, well, multiple characters, like your lizard lady. And I remember thinking, like, is a Nikto a lizard?
How do you spell Nikto? I want to look at one.
Nikto.
Okay, I spelled it right. Dang it! Why is that's not Star Wars? I mean, this guy looks a little lizardy, but I don't know if he's. It says Nikto Green Star Wars.
Yeah,
but then, like, I'm pretty sure this is I'm Gonna Die, and he does not look like.
He doesn't seem. I don't know.
He doesn't look like a lizard.
I guess I've never looked at Nikto and been like, lizards.
Though I like. You kept them with the hands. The one that was in my mind was like, you're a purple girl with the mullet, or whatever it was, where they kept talking about her mullet.
Yeah, no, that cracked me up a bunch, especially from Grease.
Yeah, I laughed about that one. Yeah. And I paused it, and I was like, I love that Grease just like he's like, it's just funny. I don't know. Sure. It was the mullet thing that got me with it. Mm-hmm. So. But
yeah, no, I think that if I had to rate out of 10, it might be like a 4 for me.
Okay.
There were moments that I feel like were an 8. There were moments I feel like we were 2. but I would probably average it at a 4.
Have we read a book that was like at a 10?
No.
No. Okay. I didn't know if we read one that was like way up there. Like,
I mean, I think I have, but not on
Badonkadonk
yeah.
yet. Okay. They're like the best ones have been like an 8 or something.
Yeah, I would say an 8 or
Like Brotherhood maybe, or
Yeah,
I like
probably.
Brotherhood a lot. And I like Master and Apprentice a lot.
Master and Apprentice a lot. Yeah.
So like those ones are kind of higher on my list.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think too, the ones where I'm like, I know what Anakin and I know what Cal and I know what these people kind of look like.
Sure.
I think I enjoy those more naturally than the ones where it's like, this is all brand new stuff. So.
Yeah.
I didn't notice this too, but Gonk ran a poll which says, what did you think about the book?
Yeah.
We had 11% said I really just didn't like it.
Okay.
What is that, 17% or is that 19%?
That
19%.
Yeah,
90% says I didn't like it. 20% said I really liked it, and 50% said I liked it.
Yeah, it's 12% that really didn't like it.
12.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I think that's it's interesting. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, there's 50% that really enjoyed it, but then everyone else kind of like, it was okay, or I didn't like it.
Yeah.
So, might not be the best
Sure.
track record
And
for it.
yeah, and I don't like if anybody came up to me and said, "Hey, dude, that was my favorite Star Wars book," I'd be like, "Awesome!
Yeah,
I am super happy for you," and that comes from the bottom of my heart.
Perhaps one of the things too is like we've talked about. Like I would love to have a horror Star Wars like show or movie or something.
Yeah.
Which is something that hasn't really been that done in Star Wars. They've kind of touched and whatnot, maybe in Bad Batch or some Clone Wars episodes, but to have like it mainly be a horror movie, I think is something that would be new.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't be against that. I think the ideas of like if this is kind of more of like if this is meant to be a little bit more of a romance novel with like some action stuff tossed into it.
Yeah.
Like if people really enjoyed that, I hope they enjoy that and they like that kind of stuff too. But it might not be a for everyone kind of thing. Just like a horror Star Wars show might not be for everyone either,
Sure.
Andor may not be for everyone either,
Yeah.
Just those kind of things. I like having more genres within Star Wars or Marvel or whatever.
I agree.
It is,
Yeah.
Just where it's like not everything we make is going to be for every single buddy, but hopefully there's some stuff you like.
I didn't think that like the look of the Darksaber matched Star Wars visual language. I didn't think that the Inquisitor lightsaber like matched to Star Wars visual language. But just because that's what I think doesn't mean that that's what it is, I think the Star Wars fandom itself needs to do that more.
Sure.
Like
for me, the romance stuff I thought was fine. I just didn't like. My thing was like some of the infighting and some of the like spinning wheels.
Yeah.
That I'm like, man, can we spend this time on other stuff? I'd rather them kiss more.
Sure. No, and I think it's just it's exaggerated because I wanted more to happen.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, like Shadows of the Empire is one of my favorite things ever, and that has an entire scene where Xizor is trying to seduce Leia, and it's extremely sexually charged,
Yeah.
But it felt like it matched, and it also had a million things happening.
There's another Star Wars book that's more of a romance I've heard. It's the
Lost
the
Stars.
Stars ones, right?
Which
And
I'm very much.
I've heard that
looking
one's
forward
been like well received.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't mind reading that one to see kind of like what they do with that because there's not I haven't read a lot of romance books or anything, and this one like touches on it, but like you're saying, like I don't know if it was done the best that it could have been done. I would have liked to have seen it done maybe a little different or somehow better, but I don't have the answer as to exactly what I think would have been the best way to do it.
Yeah.